All right, so Russia has won, um, whether you like it or not. Sorry, but they never went there to topple the government of Ukraine, take over the whole of Ukraine, and put everyone at gunpoint. That's childish. So they went there to take those eastern provinces, which they said they were going to take. Yeah, so if you thought there were going to be Russian tanks rolling through Kiev, the place, Kiev, bombed to pieces, right? Massive war. And then NATO not really getting involved, or maybe they do get involved and then it's even worse. So if you thought that was going to happen, you don't understand modern warfare. It was never going to happen. It's not what they wanted. Russia was trying to sort out those eastern provinces, and whether you agree with that or not is a whole nother story. It's a bit like the UK going into or Britain going into Northern Ireland in 1969. It's not dissimilar to that. So if you imagine Northern Ireland was one country, which a lot of people thought it was, or rather if you imagine Ireland was one country, a lot of people thought it was, then the British go in and take the north, and then a lot of Irish flee to Europe or something. It's kind of like that. And then they fight over it. So it's nothing like as intense, of course, but it's analogous to that, because they went in there to sort the troubles. That's what they were called, the Troubles in Northern Ireland. So it's a similar idea with Russia entering those regions according to Russia. So if you don't believe that, that's up to you, but it's pretty obvious that that's what they were doing. Whether there were troubles there or not is not even a question. Of course there were. There were gangsters, mafia. You know, one of the mayors of Mariupol, one of the main cities in that eastern region, was recently fired for corruption and mafia stuff. So a lot of mafia. Those Black Sea ports had a lot of people trafficking. Illegal arms trafficking, gun running, and drug trafficking. So Odessa, in that region, is the most corrupt port in Europe in terms of mafia and people trafficking, all that. So I don't know if Russia's taken Odessa. I don't think so, but the other ports they're taken care of, and it's been a big mess now. America wants to send in cluster bombs because they've lost the war. That is the sign that they know they've lost. They said it in leaked documents last year in 2022, and I said it way back that Russia was not trying to take over the whole of Ukraine. As soon as they went back to those border regions that you can now see on this is today's map or yesterday's map of what Russia holds in pink. They've held that for months now, and I said way back in last summer that they've taken what they wanted and they're going to keep it. I don't think they expected the West to put in so many weapons, and when Rishi Sunak committed a war crime by sending in depleted uranium warheads, which will be considered a war crime soon enough. If it's not right now, it will be soon. They'll be considered illegal. If they aren't already, because there is research that shows that they're really dangerous to babies and fetuses. When they blow up, the dust just goes everywhere. Even if you just blow up a tank, the dust goes everywhere in the local region, blows around, and causes deformities. So Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of UK, sent those in. I think Russia just blew them up. It looks like they did when they were in Western Ukraine, as I predicted. I predicted that Russia would just blow them up because when they're in the West, because they don't want those in the eastern provinces or near Russia, right? So I predicted that, and that's what happened. And then now America's putting in something even more desperate, but also disgusting. It's like putting mines everywhere, which Ukraine was doing back in the start of this, putting mines all over that region. Russia had to clear those up. Now you might think I'm I'm not a Putin puppet or something. I'm not. I'm just a rationalist, looking at something and analysing it and seeing it for what it is instead of being brainwashed by all this nonsense that's been going around. So you probably think that Russia was trying to take Kiev. They were not. There was no 40-mile long convoy of tanks, trucks and tanks. I called that out at the time, many times in videos. And there was no you saw a half-mile long convoy in photos. You were told by intelligence agencies, for example, and by politicians and the media, but intelligence agencies presumably are supposed to be the ones behind this, and they're telling you it's 40 miles long. That's because the Ukraine told them it's 40 miles long, and Ukraine has lied about a lot of things. You know, one of the politicians in the Ukrainian government was fired for lying about Russians raping children and stuff like that. You don't know that, and you have to ask yourself why you don't know that, right? And kudos to Ukraine for firing her, but I don't think they've been very honest about anything since then, possibly out of desperation. So there was no 40-mile long convoy. You were lied to. Maxar Technologies is connected to the US government, but not only that, they were going bankrupt not long before that, or struggling. Now they're made a load of money by selling those photos of a half-mile long convoy of trucks, not tanks, no tanks, which you don't even know where they are. You do not know. You have not had it identified where those photos were. They were half a mile long at the most, and you were told it was 40 miles long. There is zero evidence of a 40-mile long convoy. And so later on, the media or someone on Ukraine or intelligence agencies or whatever say later on, after it's nothing's happening with this 40-mile long convoy that was apparently taking days and days and days to get to Kiev. You know, I was wondering where they're going to the bathroom. You know, where they go to have a dump. You know, where are they going? What are they eating? Mincemeat. You know, must all these soldiers inside these trucks, 40 miles long, which is only half a mile long. So later on, when it was said, "Where's the 40-mile long convoy?" Oh, they've broken up and are gone into the woods and are hiding in the trees. What are you, stupid? You can see anything in trees with modern technology, especially satellites. Absolute nonsense. It never existed. You were lied to about that. That's one of the biggest ones, and so many people still believe that happened. It didn't happen. No more than Saddam Hussein had WMDs in Iraq. He didn't. So you believed that. Now you believe this. You believed COVID was a dangerous virus. It wasn't. It mostly killed the elderly, 0.2% of the whole population, and maybe like 0.15% of the elderly population. There's 800 million people on the planet who are over 65, all ages, which includes all the elderly. I feel I have to explain this obvious stuff. There was 7 million died. Even if you put that up to 10 million over 2 or 3 years, it's nothing compared to 800 million elderly people. And COVID killed mostly the elderly. So this video will get deleted from YouTube again, just for saying that. Maybe they've calmed down about that stuff now. But you were lied to about that stupid, most stunningly weak virus. Doesn't matter where it came from because it's stunningly weak, right? It's always was less deadly than average flu. So we're living in some kind of simulation here, because I don't know what the hell's going on with people's brains. This is obvious, and the whole world went mad. You were locked down like dogs. We didn't have much going on here in Vermont. 2 months, stay at home advisory, go out and get exercise for health, and then it was pretty much over, opening up slowly. So we got lucky. I mean, the only place that was better than this is maybe South Dakota, maybe, but also, and Sweden. Sweden obviously did the best out of all this, and you'll still be hearing lies about Sweden, all sorts of things, but they did great, and they showed the world how it should be done. It was less deadly than an average cold, killing a few old people and a tiny percent of people who might have been vulnerable or incredibly unlucky. You take the elderly out of those graphs, then you literally have nothing to look at. There's no news story. And it's a tiny percent of the elderly. This is the huge lie you were told, and many of you still have it in your brain. I don't know how to do this. You're hypnotized. Wake up. So back to Ukraine. You were lied about COVID, and you were lied about these solutions. I'm not going to say the word because YouTube really will delete my video if you say the word. So the V word, think what that is. It came out. So medical solution didn't work. Doesn't work. Doesn't stop the spread. Didn't stop people. People seem to be getting more COVID than they used to. So anyway, that's all. It's just a cold, so don't worry about it. If you're elderly, yeah, you might be one of the, I don't know, 0.2% of elderly who might die from it, COVID, right? You know, but you might be one of the 99.8% who don't even, some of them get a cold and most of them don't even notice they had it. Old people not even noticing. So tell me how bad that virus was. If you still think that there's something wrong, you have to wake up. I can't understand how anyone still thinks that was a terrible virus. So I don't know how to. I get a hypnotist in here to tell people to wake up. This is nuts. So anyway, that's just an example of how you're being lied to all the time. And it's not by some nefarious group. I don't believe that. I think those people like the WEF are pretty clueless. They're trying to do what they think is right, but they're wrong in most cases. But they're clueless, and so are a lot of other these conspiracy theorists. What is it? The Illuminati we had to listen to back 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Before that, what was it? The Freemasons. You know, it's always something. You know, so Opus Dei or something like that. So there's always the globalists, you know, and that's something to be wary of. There's good and bad aspects to globalism, but it doesn't mean you have to be paranoid about everything that comes along. So it's not nefarious groups, it's just stupidity on everyone's part. All of them. The media, the news media, the politicians, the intelligence agencies, the medical establishment, you name it. So it's just stupidity, stupid creatures who cannot think straight, and I can run rings around any of them if they use logic, reason, rationale, and science, real science, because there were plenty of studies published in 2020, published in peer-reviewed journals, respected journals, some of the top journals in the world, that showed that COVID was a stunningly weak virus, but no one listened. The mass hysteria kept going. So that's the same, and then it was shunted straight into Ukraine. That's why it was so easy to lie to people. So there was no 40-mile long convoy. If you think Kiev was going to be bombed to pieces, a massive battle of tanks and soldiers and everything was going to, and you think Russia was thinking of doing that, there's something wrong with you. They didn't even bring in their air force. You know, so they just did a pincer movement around Ukraine, and then nullified various military threats of some sort, tried to protect things like nuclear plants so that they wouldn't get taken over or trashed by anybody. So, and that seems to have worked. And then just last week there was all this madness, more hysteria about how Russia was going to bomb I forget the name of it, the Zapatova plant or something like that, nuclear plant. They weren't. I saw through that in a nanosecond. They weren't going to do that. It was stupid. They wouldn't do that. You're totally brainwashed if you think that's what Russia was going to do, blow up a nuclear plant near the region that they were holding, which is the eastern provinces. Totally brainwashed, and it's sad. Please come out of that brainwashing. I'm not kidding. So, what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Wagner Group. Now I'm the only one that got this right. The Wagner Group, right? Everyone's like, so first of all, there's a bunch of lunatics, hystericists, mostly fake name people, but also the news media going on about how the news media, Reuters, people like that, Wagner is going to do a coup on Putin. No, they weren't. They got sick of being at the war. They had some disputes about money, perhaps, but they were just sick of it. They didn't think they were going to be there that long. And so they decided to go home and the West and Ukraine told the West, aha, they're retreating, and now they're going to take over. And when they realised they weren't really retreating, they're going to take over, they're going to attack the Kremlin. You know, a load of nonsense. And the West just picked it up like that, including all the politicians and media, intelligence agencies just said, oh, that must be true, what Ukraine said. Or they just used it because they know they're losing, so they're trying to use anything to make Putin look like he lost, right? And okay, do what you have to if you think he's a bad guy, but you're going to lose that argument, man. So it's just like your WMDs in Iraq argument, which I saw through right at the get-go there. Utter nonsense. You could tell that the weapons inspectors at the time were telling the truth, and the US was lying. So, and everybody else, the British. So, the Wagner group just went back. They were just going home basically, and saying, "Can we get paid?" Talking to Putin, and so they had to negotiate over that, and eventually came to some kind of agreement. But they weren't trying to take over Russia. I mean, you're out to lunch, man. And so, if you think that was going on, so that never happened. That was a big lie. That they were setting the nuclear plant to be blown up as they leave. You know, all lies, more lies, and you know, no different than saying, "Oh, Russia blew up the Nord Stream pipeline," or "Oh, Russia hit Poland with missiles when it was Ukraine that did it, or probably accidentally, maybe a false flag." So everyone knows that if that plant gets blown up now, it would be a false flag, that nuclear plant. So you're going on through these lies and lies and lies, endless, very, very amateurish stuff by Ukraine, which the West seems quite happy to just blast out. So they're amateurs too. And that's the whole of the US Western intelligence, the whole of the Western media, news media, mainstream news media, are amateurs, and they're going to collapse because they don't know how to save themselves. This is what's now called legacy media, meaning it's old, it's out of date, it has no place in modern society, and it is collapsing. So the whole point here is that Russia got what they came for, those eastern provinces, and have held them, as I said way back. And I said way back, I made a video way back on several counts here. One being that Russia was going for those eastern provinces. And as soon as they pulled back past, there's a certain river, I forget the name of it, up the north somewhere. As soon as they pulled back from one part of the river, but didn't keep the whole province, whatever that northern province of those eastern provinces is, as soon as they pulled back from that, across the river, I said, yeah, they're just crossing the river and holding that part. They don't need the rest of it. They just want to hold that. They sort of use rivers as sort of boundaries. And everyone said, no, they've been pushed back. And no, they're just going to hold it. They've crossed the river and they're going to hold it. And that's what they've done. They've held it just on the edge of that river, on this sort of south-east of that river. So, and they've held that whole region. And then in, I think it was October or something, I made a video talking about how they were already in that region. Everyone was saying they got beaten back. No, they just went back. And the proof will be that they will hold it. Here we are 6 months later or more, and they're holding it. So, and they haven't blown up nuclear plants. They haven't done all sorts of atrocities. Ukraine throughout this thing was hiding in civilian areas, which is illegal, and shooting at Russians. So there's all sorts of atrocities. If anything, it's Ukraine, and now Zelensky, who was used as a puppet of some sort, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he negotiates with Russia, the hardline elements in the military, who are fascists and or ex-military, who have their own military, or nefarious groups of their own, mafia-type people, they don't want him to negotiate with Russia. Most of them are fascists. That's why white supremacists. That is, right? Not anti-communist, which is what fascism really meant when it was first brought out by Mussolini. I think it's around there. Mussolini. Fascism was anti-communist, not anti-Jewish. Get a brain. So No, it's not to do with Zelensky being a Jew. So the white supremacists, fascists we'll call them, threatened to kill him, and probably he knows his family will be killed as well. So these are hardcore people. He's not going to be able to flee to Florida, where I think he has a mansion or something, or somewhere else. He's not going to be able to access the Panama Papers. I know that's just a report, but yeah, the Panama Papers showed him, mentioned him in there, with all these offshore accounts. He's not going to be able to do much, so he's stuck. He'll have to send his family to Western Europe, probably, but he's stuck there because he might be able to escape somehow and become this hero in Western Europe, the absolute idiots of Europe and America. Aha, Winston Churchill is back. You morons. Sorry, it's ridiculous, absolutely childish, ridiculous, and part of the sort of mental state, psychosis of the species right now. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, there is, but we'll wait for that. I'll talk about that some other time. It's coming up, by the way. It's going to be interesting. It's nothing to do with anything you could possibly think of in your brain, so don't bother trying. We're gonna see the rest of this. The Ukraine thing, yeah. So they're holding that region, and they'll keep holding it. So again, 6 months from now, you'll say, aha, but they're this, that, and that. Aha, but they lost this village that they didn't care about. Okay, 6 months from now, I'll say, look, they're just holding that area. They won. And that's it. So there's no way out. The West, or America and the West, would have to go into full-scale war, boots on the ground, which they don't want. It's all about the money. It's all about their egos. And I think Zelensky will either be ousted, killed, I hope not, or go escape abroad with some of his people, hopefully, because I don't want them to be killed, right? I don't like people being killed. I don't want anybody killed. So he'll probably escape. And by the way, we have Solutions to War published in respected peer-reviewed journals time and time again. We can stop wars, we can end wars, but no one listens. So that's my little caveat to say that no, I'm not a Putin puppet, and I'm not pro-war or this war. We're the only ones that actually know what to do about it. We are the only ones, some of us. None of you do, none of you, because you don't understand science. So, yeah, he might escape, Zelensky might escape, or he'll be hopefully not killed, or his family, but then, or he'll become a dictator. It's possible that he'll become a dictator, right? If he maintains power, he'll become a dictator, aligned with Russia, by the way. That's what will happen. He's not going to be aligned with NATO or Europe. You're naive if you think that's what's going to happen. NATO will not accept him, except in an act of extreme desperation, which means the end of NATO, right? That will spell or signal basically the end of NATO if they take Ukraine in, because that's not what NATO is all about. I won't get into that here, but that's not what it's about. It's not about taking on volatile places and sorting them out. That's not how it works. So if they take on Ukraine into NATO, it's because they're absolutely desperate and NATO is finished. So Zelensky, if he survives, will be a dictator, or whoever takes over after him will be a dictator more aligned to Russia than the West. It's not going to join the EU. So it's madness. So if you think those things are real, you've been brainwashed, hypnotized, and you need to break out of that right now. So prediction for Ukraine is Russia keeps the whole region, including Crimea. And seeing as how you're now seeing these alliances, or sort of not alliances, but working together between China, Brazil, Russia, some African countries, some other countries, India, massive economies, massive places, all trying to work together. Some of the, I believe it's even Saudi Arabia now, but so you're getting these massive geopolitical change. Hopefully it goes smoothly. And now you've got America saying, which is almost as bad as Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, sending nuclear tips, or nuclear, not nuclear, but depleted uranium, whatever that is, in the tips of the missiles, which like I said, blows dust all around the region, and so Putin doesn't want that, so he blew them up when they were still in western Ukraine. So that's now you've got the US in desperation sending in something much less effective and much more dangerous to children. Well, not more dangerous to children because it's only a one-off thing. The depleted uranium, according to studies, blows around, causes deformities in fetuses, in pregnant women and babies and all that. Horrible deformities. And so now you got Biden saying he's going to send cluster bombs. Now that's desperation. It shows you they've lost, and they admitted they lost. Leaked documents showed that they lost. Said they admitted that they lost, or that Ukraine could not win. So now they're sending in cluster bombs. Absolute desperation. They've lost. Shut it down. The Europe or somebody, all these people who are caught up in this need to stop this. Cluster bombs? So that a kid coming along just, oh, what's this? Oh, boom. Is that how you're winning wars now? It's disgusting. It's all for your ego. All of this, destroying lives, innocent lives, throwing Ukrainian men and women into the front line and just killing them for your ego. Most disgusting thing I've seen in a long time. So you've lost. Stop the war and negotiate. There is no other way. You will be forced to negotiate eventually, which is what Kissinger said last year, which everyone misreported it and said, and I forget, but it was some ridiculous thing. The West lied about what Henry Kissinger said, which he said, I think they're going to have to negotiate over the region. Right? Everyone lied about it. I forget exactly what they said. So now the war is definitely lost. You can see it unless you're brainwashed and hypnotized. So stop the war. Stop killing innocents. That is a black mark on your soul. Your ego is taken over your brain. And it's all about you now, Mr. Biden, and all you politicians, and the guy, Rishi Sunak. Right? It's all about you, isn't it? You don't care. You're not sending your own people to die in that grinding machine. Shut it down. It's over. You lost.